Hey friends, welcome to Cinematic Scripture, where I use film and scripture together to show you the story beneath every story, so you can live the story of Christ with clarity, compassion, and Christ-centered love. I'm your host, Kyle Harless. Let's roll film. I want you to think about the last film that you watched, the scene that stuck in your mind, the one that you kept thinking about after the credits rolled, the one that stirred something in you, the one that made you see maybe yourself or the world a little differently. Most of us were never taught why film mattered or why that scene mattered. We just say, oh man, that was so good, and we move on. And today we're continuing Season 1, Foundations of Cinematic Theology, why story matters, why theology needs it, and how film can become sacred ground. And across this entire season, we are confronting one overarching lie. Film is just entertainment. It has nothing to do with discipleship or theology. Now, last episode, we explored what good theology is and why it's more than doctrine. Today, we will ask, what is good film and why should Christians care? Because the truth is, film actually shapes our imagination, our ethics, our vision of what's possible. So shrugging and saying, that was good, and moving on is formation, but it's formation by neglect. We've been taught to ask only one question when it comes to film. Is it clean or not? But that question actually reduces film to morality policing instead of conversation partner. But film is so much more than just entertainment or distraction. Film is art, it's craft, it's a cultural liturgy. It shapes our imagination, our ethics, our memories, our hopes, and our fears. And asking if it's clean or not, morality policing, those trains of thought rarely go beyond surface judgments. Yet Scripture calls us to more. Scripture calls us to listen, to pay attention, and to discern. Consider what Paul says in his letter to the Christians in Philippi. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Good film is worthy of our attention, not because it's flawless, but because it tells the truth through beauty, through tension, through craft, and through story. And when we reduce good film to whatever entertains me, or is it clean, we actually flatten the formation possible into preferences and moral stances. And as a result, we tend to avoid films that are of good artistic quality. We avoid films that wrestle with darkness, and we avoid films that wrestle with complexity. And instead, we consume passively, or we just dismiss films as secular. But reducing films to a moral checklist, it stops us from seeing what film is actually communicating. Like, think about it. We miss film's power to name the ache, to confront idols, to cultivate wisdom, to actually challenge our empathy, to cause us to pause and to consider another perspective. It leads us to understand people many of us would actually never talk to in person. We act as though films are the problem. But when we look at Scripture, an honest look at Scripture, it shows that the Bible does not avoid complexity or darkness. In fact, Scripture wrestles with many of the same themes that films do. Film echoes themes that are found across Scripture. Think about it. Scripture, it laments, it argues, it reveals, it confronts, it hopes, and it endures. Why? Because it is telling a story. It is telling a story of God's goodness in humanity's rebellion, of God's continual pursuit of humanity for relationship, and humanity's continued turning away from God. It's a story of God stepping in as a human, doing what no human can do. It is God pursuing us in the ups and downs and the conflict of humanity choosing to go its own path. The story of Scripture, it wrestles with darkness and it tackles real themes and problems and actions and sins and sin issues that echo in film today. But unfortunately, many of us, many Christians and even non-Christians, we have missed the nuance of that, opting instead to view the Bible as a book of rules or as a rule book. But reading Scripture as story challenges us to look at its characters and judge our motives and actions. It challenges us to listen to the parables of Jesus' teachings and to wrestle with the fact that he is not giving easy answers. Friends, there's not a tidy sacred versus secular split. There are stories of surrender and stories of pride, stories of redemption and stories of the counterfeit of redemption. And see, film echoes these same themes that we find in Scripture in the stories that they tell. So the question isn't whether film matters. The question is whether we will engage it wisely. I mean, just think of The Social Network. It doesn't just entertain, but it confronts ambition, connection, and cultural liturgy. It asks, what shapes our identity when technology becomes an altar? Think about Inception. It doesn't just thrill, it wrestles with fragile truth and reality. It asks, can we discern what is real, echoing the call to spiritual clarity? What about Black Panther? Black Panther, it doesn't just dazzle, it dignifies identity and cultural truth. It celebrates beauty, heritage, and justice. And it asks, what kind of kingdom are we longing for? Or think about Moonlight. Moonlight doesn't just tell a story, it invites empathy, tracing identity and longing across fractured lives. See, friends, film is not just entertainment. If we engage with it, we can see that film is actually liturgy, that it forms us. Okay, so let's name the shift. The lie, good film is what entertains me. But the truth is, good film is layered, thoughtful, and enduring. See, its artistry, its depth, and its storytelling, it does linger. Good films, they move beyond dialogue or just the message. It is a tapestry of editing, music, imagery, foreshadowing, its aesthetics, its camera angles, its framing, and its staging. They all work together because film is visual storytelling. All its components work together to create something good or beautiful. See, I'm a story guy. I connect with a film that tells a beautiful story. Those are the ones that are my favorite, the ones that I really get the story. And even though I understand film aesthetics and techniques, I tend to focus on story. But as a visual medium, film is more than just story, and we have to view it that way to see what is good film. And as Christians, if we are going to engage with film, if we're going to engage with film well, we have to see it as a visual medium. That's what I want to share with you, 4 practices that can actually shape how we engage with film. Number 1, see the craft, not just the content. Good films, they reveal more than just dialogue. Pay attention to what the camera lingers on, what the music amplifies, what the edits emphasize, what colors, symbols, and images repeat. Again, this is visual theology because film is a visual medium. It doesn't just tell a story, it shows one through its camera movements, through its lighting, through its music, its editing, its imagery. The film reveals the ache, the longing, the rupture, and the hope beneath the plot. So think of this. Next time you watch a film, next time you watch a movie, pick one element, the music, the way the scene is framed, the color, and ask, how is this shaping what I feel and believe about this story? Number 2, listen for the theme beneath the plot. Plot is what happens. Theme is what it means. So just ask, what ache is being named? What fear is being confronted? What kind of good life is being imagined? What does this story say is worth sacrificing for? Good films don't just move you, they actually mean something. And we can't just turn off our brains and take it in. We need to engage with it, to praise what it gets right, to correct what it gets wrong. But we can't do that if we don't listen. So, after the credits roll, try to think about the theme. Try to summarize, if you can, the film's message in one sentence. Not the plot, but the theme, the claim that it's making about the world. Number 3, pay attention to the characters. Pay attention to how the characters are formed. Stories disciple through characters. Who changes? What breaks them open? What hardens them? Who shows mercy? And who clings to power? Formation is always happening, friends, for every character and for us as viewers. And the beauty of characters is that often we can see aspects of ourselves in each character. Now, whether we want to admit that or not is a whole nother story, but we can see our hopes, our fears, our dreams, our faults, and even our innate pull to be our own gods played out on the screen before us. So here's the idea. Choose one character and ask, how does this story want me to feel about the characters? Did I celebrate what Jesus would celebrate? Did I mourn what Jesus would mourn? And finally, number 4, use film as a discipleship conversation starter, not a moral verdict. Good films, they don't need to be baptized. They need to be discerned. Our task isn't to swing between permissiveness and prohibition. Our task is to ask, what truth is being told here? What lie is being believed? What longing is being named? What redemption is being imagined? When we watch attentively and reflect spiritually, film becomes a partner in discipleship, not a threat to it. The Social Network, it teaches us cultural discernment around ambition and connection. Inception teaches us to confront fragile truth and practice discernment. Black Panther teaches us to embrace identity, beauty, and kingdom imagination, and Moonlight teaches empathy and dignity. See, just as Jesus used stories that his audience could connect to, they could relate to, we can too. if we stop using surface judgments and actually engage with story. Because the ache of every story and character actually echoes the biblical story. All stories echo the human condition. And while many show the response to the human condition to be more pain, rupture, and hurt, like the way I deal with this is more pain, rupture, and hurt, there are actually some stories that hint at, that cry for, that long for redemption. And there are even stories, friends, that will show us what biblical redemption can look like. But we miss those when we get so concerned with surface issues. But here's the good news. I can actually help you learn to engage film in a biblical way, to move past these surface issues and to see the story that is beneath every story. It's through a live 5-day experience called See the Story, where you're going to learn a simple, powerful 3-step tool that helps you see echoes of the gospel everywhere and live out the story of Christ with compassion, clarity, and Christ-centered love. I run this 5-day awakening every month, and you can check out more details at cinematicscripture.com and see if it's for you. Check it out. If not for you, cool. But if it is, check it out. So listen, friends, we can engage film as formation, but it requires a mindset shift, but it can be done. And maybe you're hearing this and you're like, film is just entertainment. I turn it on for background noise. I get that. I get watching a film or a TV show just to unwind or decompress. But we need to understand that formation is always happening, whether we are paying attention or not. Yes, reflection does feel like work when we're starting out, but the more we do it, the easier it gets. And discernment does take effort, but that's what we are called to do. So we have to be careful not to embrace this culture of just binge through a series and not think about it, to turn off our brain when something's on, to pull out our phone when we're bored with the show, or that we just need background noise and that's why it's on. Nothing about these mindsets actually invite us to treat film as art, craft, or cultural liturgy, or even a dialogue partner. Instead, they lead us to treat film as filler and noise, closing ourselves off from what the film is actually trying to say. And as followers of Christ, I recognize that the church has had a spotty history with film. Some engage film as good visual art, and still others have reduced film to a checklist of questions. Like, is there swearing? Is there violence? Is there sex? Does it have this? Does it promote that? And yes, please hear this. Don't just shut this off. Hear this. Wisdom absolutely includes boundaries. You know what you should watch and what you shouldn't. That's between you and God. This is not a black and white area. Wisdom absolutely includes boundaries. But hear this. A clean or not grid, when that's our definition of good film, it ignores beauty, it ignores tension, it ignores honesty, it ignores lament, and it ignores the way that story reveals hearts, the rupture and the redemption of hearts. And let's be honest, scripture is filled with some of the very things that we avoid in film. But that's what makes scripture's story all the more beautiful. It doesn't endorse these activities, but it shows the reality of it. I mean, think of the narrative honesty of the Bible. The Old Testament, it wrestles with and shines a light on human failure. It is full of stories of just messed up people doing messed up things and a God who loves them and pursues. Yes, there's judgment. Yes, there's reconciliation, but we see the goodness of God and we see the downfall and wickedness of sin and humanity. The Bible is full of prayed tension, if you will. The Psalms hold beauty and lament together as David and others pray these Psalms. The Bible has thematic and prophetic depth. The prophets, they name sin and they imagine hope. There's parabolic wisdom in the fact that Jesus teaches stories that invite reflection and reveal heaven's nature. And Scripture gives us a discernment grid if we're paying attention. Again, Philippians 4, Paul reframes our attention toward what is true, what is noble, what is right, what is pure, what is lovely, and what is admirable. So the question we should ask is not, did this film make me comfortable? The question should be, what is this film doing to my vision of God, neighbor, self, and world? Does this lead me to love God and my neighbor better or not? These are the kind of questions that we need to ask. Friends, the opposition is real, but we are called to engage, to be spirit-led and engage with wisdom. So imagine this with me. Imagine what would shift if we as Christians would embrace film as art, craft, and cultural liturgy. Our questions would shift from is it clean or appropriate to is it true? Is it beautiful? Is it honest about the ache? Does it imagine redemption? Our attention would shift from passive consumption to thoughtful, prayerful engagement. Our focus would shift from dismissing culture to discerning it with wisdom and compassion. If the church embraced film in conversation with wisdom and imagination, then spiritual communities would be people gathering around films the way they gather around parables, to hear the story, to listen for what God might be speaking. It would be groups watching a film together and then opening the scriptures and asking, what does this echo in the Gospels? Where does this echo in the Gospels? And where does it distort the Gospels? Discussion nights would happen where films are used as starting points for confession, lament, hope, and prayer. See, when we watch attentively and we reflect spiritually, film becomes a doorway into a deeper discipleship. It's not a distraction from it. In homes and friendship circles, when movies end, the discussions would begin. What did this stir in us? What did this normalize? What did this challenge? And how might Jesus speak to this story? And film discussions could actually become practices for spiritual truth, not because everything is safe, but because everything is brought into the light. See, if we would shift our mindsets, in cultural spaces, Christians would become known as people who don't avoid stories, but who engage them with wisdom, empathy, curiosity, conviction. We would look at films and we would see mercy in Les Mis. We would see justice in 12 Angry Men. We would see hope in Shawshank Redemption. We would see truth in Inception. We would see inequality confronted in Parasite. And we would see identity and dignity explored in Moonlight. And we would ask, together, how does this story invite us to live differently? Because good film does not just entertain, friends, it disciples. And here's the thing, a new world is possible when we acknowledge what good film is and we engage it. Because good film is worthy of theological attention, not as distraction, but as dialogue, not as entertainment, but as formation. See, we can ignore film and label it as secular and drift along as we have been doing, or we can engage with film and dialogue with it and let it disciple us toward Jesus. Hey friends, thanks so much for journeying through this story with me. If something in this episode resonated with you and you would like to learn how to see the story beneath every story, to break the beliefs that have kept you from clarity, and to move from I should know this by now to I can finally see, then I'd love to invite you into the See the Story of 5-Day Awakening. This is a live 5-day experience where you'll learn a simple, powerful 3-step lens that's going to help you recognize the story beneath every story in scripture, in film, and in your own life. And the payoff after these 5 days is a clearer faith, a coherent story, a way of seeing the gospel everywhere, and the confidence to share it naturally without performance or pressure. If what I shared today resonated with you, stirred something in you, if you sense that pull towards awakening, towards clarity, towards a story-shaped life, this is your next step. You can join it at cinematicscripture.com. All the details are there. Until next time, I'm Kyle. This is Cinematic Scripture. Watch attentively, reflect spiritually, and lead from story. I'll see you next time.